Level 1. 18X Candidate. Age 18. The recruiter doesn't sell you anything. He just slides a brochure across the table and lets you read it in silence. You sign the 18X contract on a Tuesday in October. You're the youngest person at the MEPS station. The guy beside you is enlisting for a steady paycheck. You're enlisting because something in you has always needed to be tested at a level most people actively avoid. Basic combat training at Fort Jackson is not what breaks you. It's the realization that basic is just the lobby. The building hasn't started yet. You learn to function without sleep. Not just sleep deprived, but genuinely running on 4 hours across 2 days with a rucksack pressing your lumbar spine into a slow ruin. You learn that your body has reserves you never authorized it to build. You learn that pain is mostly narrative. You also learn something quieter, that every man standing in that formation was told by someone, at some point, that he wasn't built for this. Most of them believed it for a while. The army is not what you imagined. It is louder, stranger, more administrative, and somehow more human than any film prepared you for. You are nobody yet. That's exactly where you need to start. Level 2. PFC. Age 20. SFAS. Camp Mackle. The land navigation course at Camp Mackle starts before dawn. You have a compass, a protractor, a map, and coordinates for points scattered across 30 kilometers of Carolina pine forest. You have no partner. You have no GPS. Special Forces assessment and selection exists to answer one question the Army cannot answer with a written test. When no one is watching and everything is miserable, who keeps moving? The stress positions. The team events designed to be impossible. The cadre who observe without expression, writing nothing you can see, judging everything you cannot hide. The sleep deprivation that reaches a death where hallucination becomes a genuine logistical concern. Roughly 70% of candidates who enter SFAS do not complete it. The reasons are rarely singular. It is usually the accumulation of small decisions made in the early hours of day 3 or 4. When the mind starts negotiating with itself, you don't quit. Not because quitting doesn't occur to you. It does, at a water crossing at 0300 with your boots soaked and your toes gone numb. You don't quit because you decide, in that moment, that the version of you who walks away is someone you are unwilling to become. You receive your assessment results without ceremony. A quiet nod. A number on a list. Welcome to the pipeline. Level 3. Specialist. Age 21. The Q course. The Special Forces qualification course will run approximately 55 weeks of your life, and it will touch nearly every part of your mind. You choose 18C. Combat Engineer. Your MOS coursework is 8 months of demolitions, breaching, construction, surveying, and the specific arithmetic of how much C4 is required to drop a bridge without dropping the wrong bridge. The instruction is meticulous and delivered without theater. Then Robin Sage. 26 days in the Uwharrie National Forest of North Carolina, running a simulated unconventional warfare mission inside a fictional country called Pineland, with a guerrilla force of actual civilians role-playing resistance fighters. Some of them have done this for decades. Some speak German in the safe house just to see if you flinch. You learn here that Special Forces is not primarily about violence. It is about relationship, influence, language, the slow architecture of trust built across cultural distance. A Green Beret who cannot sit with a village elder for 2 hours and communicate respect without speaking the same language is not a Green Beret. He is just a soldier with a better hat. The long tab arrives without a parade. You sew it on yourself. Level 4. Sergeant. Age 23. ODA 316. First deployment, Afghanistan. Your ODA arrives at Hafobi Salerno in 2012 during the tail end of the surge, and the province has already decided what it thinks of Americans. 12 men. 1 team. Each with a specialty. Each cross-trained in at least one other. The culture of an ODA is unlike anything else in the American military. Flat authority, brutal honesty, institutional tolerance for disagreement, and an absolute expectation that you will solve the problem in front of you regardless of what doctrine says to do about it. Your mission is foreign internal defense. You are advising and training Afghan National Army commandos in Kots Province. The terrain is lunar and cold at altitude. The valleys are green and close, and remind men of ambushes. You spend your first month watching how your team sergeant, a 16-year veteran from Arkansas, moves through an Afghan compound. He takes his boots off before he enters. He accepts tea before he speaks. He never asks for something before he is given something. You watch this and you begin to understand what the Q course was actually teaching. Your first firefight happens on a patrol you almost weren't assigned to. It lasts 11 minutes. It feels like a long time. You do not yet understand everything that happened. You file the report. You continue the mission. Level 5. Staff Sergeant. Age 27, Mali, West Africa. The world has changed its geography of conflict, and Special Forces has followed it westward. You are in Mali under a training mission that officially does not involve combat operations, and practically involves more complexity than any deployment you have run in Central Asia. The political landscape is fractured. The national military you are advising has loyalties that shift with the season. The French are operating 40 kilometers north. The intelligence picture is 3 weeks old. Village stability operations taught you how to hold terrain through relationship. West Africa teaches you something harder: how to advise forces whose institutional culture was not built around the same assumptions about command, accountability, or the rule of engagement. You spend an afternoon helping a Malian captain write an operational order that his battalion will partially ignore. You spend the evening eating with his family. You spend the night wondering if any of it matters. It does. Not in the way doctrine predicts. In the slower, more ambiguous way that history eventually records. You are becoming a strategist without realizing it. You are starting to see the system instead of just the mission. Level 6, Sergeant First Class. Age 31, Team Sergeant, ODA 7235. The Team Sergeant is the axis around which an ODA actually rotates. The captain commands. But the Team Sergeant makes the team. He manages the internal culture, the individual performance, the quiet correction of men who are drifting, the institutional memory that no briefing document can hold. He is the person who tells the commander when the plan has a problem, and who accepts that the commander may still run the plan. You have done this work for 3 years when your ODA deploys to the Philippines under Joint Special Operations Task Force. The mission is counterterrorism advisory for the armed forces of the Philippines operating against Abu Sayyaf in Basilan and Hulo. The archipelago is dense and humid and indifferent to your timeline. One of your junior NCOs is technically gifted and personally combustible. You spend more time on him than on any other problem. You find that leadership at this level is less about inspiring people and more about understanding them specifically enough to place them where they cannot fail. He earns a Valor Award on this deployment. He comes to you afterward and doesn't say anything. He doesn't have to. Level 7, Master Sergeant. Age 35, Group Staff. Fort Bragg. The operational tempo of the past decade has produced something the institution is reluctant to name directly: a generation of Green Berets who are tactically exceptional and institutionally exhausted. You know this because you are one of them. You are now a senior NCO working in Group Staff, writing doctrine, reviewing assessments, sitting on promotion boards that determine which sergeants become the team leaders of the next generation. You are, in ways that would have been invisible to your 21-year-old self, building the army. The paperwork is real. The bureaucracy is real. The politics are real. And you have learned to navigate all of it with the same patience you learned to use in a Malin village. You mentor a young 18C who reminds you of yourself in ways that are uncomfortable. You tell him what no one told you. The mission will test your body, but the institution will test your character. He nods the way young men nod when they don't fully believe you yet. He will, eventually. Level 8, Sergeant Major. Age 39, Battalion CSM. At this level, your decisions affect men you will never meet. You set training standards. You shape evaluation culture. You decide, in ways that feel administrative but carry operational consequence, what kind of soldiers the battalion produces. A sergeant major who values physical courage over emotional intelligence will build a battalion that reflects that. A sergeant major who values only technical skill will build something dangerously brittle. You have watched enough men break in the years after deployment to understand that resilience is not simply a personality trait. It is a culture that must be deliberately constructed and protected at every level. You present this view at a battalion commander's conference and receive a polite reception and meaningful resistance. You present it again 6 months later with data. The reception changes. You are no longer fighting with rifles. You are fighting with arguments, and mistakes are still lies. Level 9. Command Sergeant Major, age 44, Group CSM. There is a ceremony in a gymnasium at Fort Liberty on a Thursday in March. You receive the group colors. 1,200 soldiers are present. 3 generals. A senator. You have given enough speeches in your career to understand that the speech is not the point. The soldiers watching you have already formed their assessment. They formed it from 1,000 small decisions you made when no one important was looking. You spend your tenure as Group CSM focused on one thing that no one puts in a mission brief: the gap between the soldier who arrives and the soldier who is needed. The training pipeline is efficient. The selection process is rigorous. But something between the Q course and first deployment still leaves men unprepared for the interior experience of sustained operational pressure. You push for a program. It meets resistance. It gets funded at 60%. It runs anyway. In your last month, you receive a letter from an 18E on his 3rd deployment who says the program probably saved his marriage. You keep the letter in your desk drawer and do not share it with anyone. Level 10. Retired, Senior Advisor, age 48. You do not leave quietly. No one who spent 26 years in Special Forces leaves quietly. But you leave deliberately, which is the better thing. Your retirement ceremony is smaller than it could be. You asked for it that way. Standing in the parking lot afterward in civilian clothes for the first time in a working context, you feel the institutional weight lift in a way you weren't expecting. You had prepared for loss. You had not prepared for the strange lightness of no longer being responsible for other people's lives. You take an advisory role with a defense contractor. You consult on interagency training programs. You sit across tables from people who use the word operator to mean something decorative. And you say nothing, and you drink the coffee. What stays with you is not the firefights, not the awards, not the operations that worked. What stays is the Malang captain's courtyard. The boots removed at a threshold. The tea accepted before speaking. The patience of sitting with someone across a distance of culture and language and history, and simply refusing to let that distance be the final word. Special Forces did not make you hard. It made you precise. It taught you that the most dangerous thing a soldier can carry into a complex environment is certainty. You are not always certain. That, in the end, may have been the whole point.